And you want to know why? Because they want me there. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people get when you start changing? When you stop agreeing to the things that drain you, or when you suddenly decide that the life you were handed just isn't the life you want to live? There's this strange, quiet friction that happens in rooms, in friendships, and in families. It took me a long time to understand what that friction actually was, but I finally realized the terrifying truth this week. People don't want you to be free. They want you to inherit their cages. You know, most of our lives are prisons of our own creations, and everyone is doing their best not to be alone in theirs. I know this might sound confusing, but just stick with me a little bit, because I wrote down this voiceover or this thought I had in my head, and I don't know, until the end, it became so obvious and so yes, of course, that's exactly it. There's this famous quote by Richard Bach that says, "Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they are yours." But no one tells you that people don't just argue for their own limits, they will fight for them. They will look you in the eyes and tell you why your dreams are unrealistic, why your boundaries are too harsh, or why the routine you are trying to escape is just how life is. How often did I hear this sentence? We think they are trying to protect us from failing, but they aren't. They really aren't. They are protecting themselves from reality. Because if you break out of the pattern, it means they could have broken out too. And that brings up a question most people spend their lives trying to avoid. I think we are all born wide open, but then we grow up and we listen to the tired, burned-out people around us until we slowly start to believe their fears are fact. I almost let that happen to me, especially in the last years of high school and maybe even a bit during my studies and all those jobs, hundreds of jobs I already did in my life. But there is a single thought that actually changed everything. When other people fight for their own limitations, they are doing it to convince you that it should become your limitation as well. They want you to stay tired with them. They want you to agree that the cage is comfortable. But here's the truth. You do not have to apologize for outgrowing the people who just refuse to grow. And the thing is, they don't know that, and they will probably never know it. And that's why I ask myself, who is able to know it? And why? Who gets to ask those questions? One of you wrote underneath my last video that most of us don't want to look deeper because they wouldn't be able to handle their flaws, and that we are just happier staying on the surface. But are you really happy? Do I know one single person in my life that is really happy? I think change is the only way to truly be happy. Changing every moment. I know, whatever that word happiness means to you. I don't mean I will never be sad, I will never cry. Don't do that. Happiness is such a misunderstood word. I did a story about that too. I think we just should all stop participating in arguments about what you are capable of with people who have already given up on themselves. Stop asking for permission to change from the very people who need you to stay exactly the same so they can feel safe. If you fight for your limitations, you will get to keep them. But I'm dropping my hands. I am refusing to carry weights that just don't belong to me. So, the next time when someone tries to hand you their doubt, I want you to remember that their limits are not your laws. Let them keep their cages. They are not your responsibility. You are allowed to break free. And I remember now, I actually said this in my first ever story on here. I want to break free of the ice I have surrounded myself with in order to find back to her.